Hi, I'm Old Norse Specialist Dr. Jackson Crawford. In our last Old Norse lesson, we encountered briefly halda, meaning to hold, but notice that halda does not have an accusative direct object as you'd expect. Instead, its direct object is in the dative. This is something that makes Old Norse notoriously difficult to learn even among people who are into or acquainted with other inflected languages, that the case rules are sometimes not what you expect, and there are verbs that take a direct object that is not accusative, but rather dative or even genitive. So today's lesson revolves around those verbs. So I want you to learn these verbs. I'll begin with the one that I just mentioned because it's very common. Halda. Halda is a class 7 strong verb. Principal parts can be hilder, helt, hildu, haldin, haldit. And it takes a dative object. So, helt hon fiski. She held the fish. Not fisk, right? Because fisker is a normal all-stem strong masculine noun. The Fiski is not an indirect object, it's a direct object because hold demands a dative direct object. Another one that takes a dative direct object is bregða. Now, this is used of many fast motions. It can mean to draw, as in draw a sword, something like that. It can mean to take on a facial expression. It can mean to react facially or visibly in a particular way. It can mean to sort of pull, like especially for pulling something small off of something else, like pulling rings off of fingers, or pulling something that's hanging on something off of the wall, something like that. This is a class 3 technically, although it's a very irregular verb. Principal parts are bregður, bro, brugðu, and brugðin, brugðu. It takes dative object, so han bro fingrinum I munser. He put, right, fast motion, the finger in his mouth. Notice here, we don't say in Old Norse, his finger, his mouth. We either use the article, the word the on it, so fingrinum, or we use the dative of the person we're talking about, so ser. So I munser, it looks like into the mouth, like to himself, but it means into his mouth. Another verb, a I-type weak verb that takes a dative object is fylgja, follow. Skinit fylgdi ermunum, the skin followed the sleeves. This is about when Signy sews clothes to her son's skin and then rips the sleeves off, and so the skin followed the sleeves. Evek fylgi honum, if I follow him, not fylgi han. Heita is a verb that means to promise. Now, we've seen it in the meaning of to be named, where it has some irregular endings in the present tense. It looks like an I-type weak verb, even though it's technically a strong verb. However, it has normal class 7 strong verb endings when it means promise, but when it means promise, it takes a double dative object. The person you're promising to is in the dative, and the thing you're promising is in the dative. So, hvort þú heitir oss góðu eða illu, whether you promise us, dative, good or bad. Notice that we're using these adjectives as sort of nouns, so we're basically using them as neuter nouns, using neuter strong adjective endings, góðu eða illu, neuter dative singular endings on those adjectives, whether you promise us good or bad. Hjálpa means to help, takes a dative object. This is a class 3 strong verb. Principal parts, helper, hulp, hulpu, hulpen, hulpit. Hon helper ollum theim henni þjóna. She helps all those who serve her. Right? Þjóna henni, not þjóna hana. Þú helper ollum kristnum monum. You help all Christian men, not alla kristna men. Róða, to rule, has a dative object as well. Reðu boðir liði. Boðir ruled the army. Sigmundur konungur ræður nú enn ríki sínu. King Sigmund rules now still his kingdom. Right? Ríku síni, not ríki sitt. Skipa, to arrange, takes a dative object. Atli konungur skipar liði sínu til orustu. King Atli arranges his army for the battle, to the battle. Snúa, turn. This is a weird class 7 verb. I mean, what isn't a weird class 7 strong verb? But principal parts are snur, sneri, sneru, snú and snuit. This takes a dative object. Sigrún snur þeim í góða hoven. Sigrún turns them into a good harbor. This is Sigrún, the flying Valkyrie, who is turning the navy of Helgi so that it goes into a good harbor. In a similar way, stýra, meaning to steer, takes a dative object. Hver stýrði inu mikla liði, who directed the big army. Sigurður stýrir dreka þeim mistarvar. Sigurd steers the dragon ship, this ship with the head of a dragon, which is biggest. Svara takes a dative. Ek skal þessu svara, I must answer this. Una, love, takes a dative object. That's why you say ek an þér, I love you, not ek an þig. So Sigurður an Brynhildi, Sigurður loved Brynhild. Brynhildur is part of a class of feminine names that does have an I in the dative ending. Hvert barn uni honum, each child loved him. Þjóna, serve, takes a dative. Þjónuðu allir þeim, all served them. And then we also have a couple verbs where you have not a dative object, but a dative seeming subject. These are lika and thikya. So lika means to like, and it's a class A-type weak verb. So you say, like, mer likar that, I like it, right? It looks basically reversed. If you think of it as meaning please and taking a dative object, like it pleases me, I like it, that may help you be ready for this. But it takes a dative seeming subject. So does thikya. Now, thikya can kind of mean, of course it looks like English think. All right, this is an I-type weak verb that has an irregular past tense, thoti, thota, thotir, thoti, thotum, thotith, thotu, although you really only see the third person singular thoti. Durit thoti mer olum hlutum betra. The animal, Durit, seemed to me, thoti mer, better, betra, than all things, olum hlutum. Sometimes than can be indicated just by having a dative there. So the animal seemed to me better than all things. Now, this looks like think, so this kind of looks like English me thinks, which in fact comes from a time when English think worked just like this. It really means seemed. So the subject really is Dirit, the animal. That's nominative. The animal seemed to me, thoti mer, and then you have, whatever seemed to me. But be ready for that, because sometimes, because it looks so much like English think thought, you can kind of think of it as think thought, and then it looks like a verb that has a dative subject rather than just meaning, seems to me, him, name, whatever the dative there is. All right, hopefully the examples that I've given you here by speech and on the screen have helped some. I may have a few more examples on the screen following this too, and then I will have some reading practice for you as usual at the end of this video. And for any of you who are still hanging on to the series, keep in mind I do release these videos much earlier to my Patreon supporters, and I do offer Patreon supporters although slowly because I'm not online that much, some direct feedback on, quote unquote homework and such. Well, for now, for beautiful Colorado, let me wish you all the best.